radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy.
All right, folks, this is truly disturbing and genuinely dangerous. That is the sitting president of the United States saying, I couldn't care less about radicalism and political violence coming from his party and his side of the aisle. And we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I mentioned in a previous video that Donald Trump sat down with Fox News, specifically Fox and Friends, and that's where he made the announcement that a suspect in connection with the assassination of Charlie Kirk had been brought to custody. And I said during that video that I want to have a separate video about the rest of the interview because Trump says all sorts of unhinged, dangerous, dishonest things. This is one of them. So I want you to consider the reasonable question that was posed to him by MAGA Fox News host Ainsley Earhardt. She says, listen, we have radicals on both sides, the right and the left, and Charlie Kirk was just assassinated. There's a sense of political violence in this country that's escalating. What do you say? Now, Donald Trump is the sitting president. He's not a podcasting firebrand. He's a guy who wields the most important office, sits in the most important office, wields the greatest power in this country, perhaps the world. And a responsible president would say, hey, listen, we have to do our parts, as members of both parties to tamp down on extremism and radicalism and make it abundantly clear, be it from the left or the right, that political violence is unacceptable. And instead, he explicitly confirms, just bluntly says it, what he signaled very strongly a couple of days ago in his first video address to the nation after Kirk was assassinated, which is he doesn't give a damn about Republican violence or Republican extremism because he thinks it serves him. He is only exclusively focused on his political opponents. Now, I've referenced this article multiple times, but Mehdi Hassan from Zateo put together a really compelling piece in which he lists recent high-profile examples of right-wing violence against Democrats. So again, the man who targeted and killed Democratic state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home in Minnesota in June was a Trump supporter. By the way, another Democratic lawmaker and his spouse were shot by the same person. They just survived. The man charged with the attempted assassination of Pennsylvania's Democratic governor, Josh Shapiro, in April was a Trump supporter. The man convicted of orchestrating a series of shootings at the homes of 4 Democratic elected officials in New Mexico was a Trump supporter. The man who tried to kidnap Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband in 2022 was a Trump supporter, and it goes on and on and on. Many high-profile instances of right-wing violence against Democrats. And here you have the sitting president of the United States telling half of this country, I don't give a shit about protecting you all. I give a shit about going after you all, prosecuting your extremists. If extremism is committed against you by the right, it's justified, Trump says. They're doing it. They have good reasons. It's dangerous stuff. Dangerous stuff, particularly at this moment. If there's one person who would be in a position to calm things down, given his office, given his control over the Republican Party, it would be Donald Trump, and he's effectively given a green light to them. Do whatever you want. We're focused on the radical left. Not good, folks. Here's some other clips from Trump's interview on Fox and Friends.
I had one the other night. I went into a restaurant, and this woman stood up. I looked at her immediately. She had money. She wasn't serious. They get paid for it. They're professional from Soros and other people. And we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people. Because this is more than like protests. This is real agitation. This is riots on the street. And we're going to look into that.
So that's Trump launching a RICO investigation, or announcing that a RICO investigation will be launched against George Soros, the boogeyman of the right, somebody who's been considered a boogeyman by the right from the left for years, a mega donor to the Democratic Party. And Trump is saying, yeah, I'm effectively ordering a RICO investigation by the executive branch into this Democratic mega donor because I believe he's nefariously funded, agitators. Again, no compelling evidence whatsoever. Trump abusing the powers of his office to target his political foes. Here's another clip.
And that is very safe. People would come from Iowa, they'd come from Indiana, and their son would be killed. They'd be killed. And now you can come and you can enjoy. I was very embarrassed because I had the president of Poland in, and they started asking me about D.C. a couple of weeks ago. And I said, we're very proud of the fact that nobody's been killed this week. And he looks at me like, head of Poland. He says, whoa, is that? And he said, well, and I'm telling the press, they're doing the little thing in the Oval Office, our great Oval Office, our very upgraded Oval. And the press is asking me, well, what about that? He said, we haven't had anybody killed in the last 3 weeks, and it's very safe. People would.
So again, Donald Trump talking about what he's doing in Washington, D.C., and also his renovations to the Oval Office. Here he's advocating for China-style quick trials.
He did to her was unbelievable. And then he walks through, the knife is dripping blood and everything else. One thing I say, we have to have quick trials.
Yeah.
I call it quick trial, because in China, they do have quick trials, They don't wait 6 years and
you
claim
start
all
off
sorts
guilty and
of
you end up
reason.
guilty in China.
Oh, it's terrible. What happens here is...
I mean, even Brian Kilmeade is like, hey, yeah, in China, you're presumed guilty and have to prove your innocence. Here in the United States, you're presumed innocent and your guilt has to be proven by prosecutors. Of course, they're referencing the brutal stabbing of a woman here in Charlotte on the light rail about 3 weeks ago. It was terrible. It was atrocious. And now the right wing in this country, the Republican Party, I think in an attempt to try to undermine Democratic Senate candidate Roy Cooper, weeks later, they're trying to demagogue the issue at a national level. I mean, the killing itself was grisly, and there's no question that the perpetrator should be behind bars, that he should be taken off the streets. There's no question about that. But local murders happen all the time. The Republicans are going after this one, I think, to try to hit Roy Cooper because they know that North Carolina is flippable in the upcoming midterms. That's my theory. Here's another clip.
Loud out. What's going to happen?
So I think maybe I'll be the first to say it right now again. We're going to Memphis. Memphis is...
That's the next city.
Deeply troubled. And the mayor is happy. He's a Democrat mayor. The mayor is happy. And the governor, Tennessee. The governor is happy. Deeply troubled. We're going to fix that just like we did Washington. I would have preferred going to Chicago. I had a man in the head of a big railroad. They're doing a merger, and he wanted to come see me and all that stuff. And I asked him, because, it's one of the largest train companies, maybe the largest, so you can figure out who it is. Okay, Union Pacific. And he was in my office.
He's just so dumb. He's like, and I can tell you it is. It's big. It's one of the biggest. You can figure it out. It's Union Pacific. It's Union Pacific. Jeez, he's really dumb. Trump is apparently announcing that he's going to be deploying the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis, Tennessee has, a particularly high crime rate. There's no question about it. And Tennessee is a red state, so that is an announcement. He says the governor and the mayor are happy about this, in which case I'm just curious, why isn't the governor himself? The governor of Tennessee can deploy the National Guard without the president's permission. The president doesn't need to do it. Again, the National Guard operates under dual jurisdiction, right? They are simultaneously, they're typically day to day under the control of the governor. And under certain circumstances, they can be deployed by the federal government. And if the governor of Tennessee wants the National Guard to be deployed to help crack down on crime in Memphis, why does he need Trump to do it? It's kind of weird. Sounds like something's missing. Or maybe it's a political stunt. I have no idea. Here's another clip in which Trump talks about basically a sequel to the January 6th Select Committee.
Doesn't even know it.
They took the unselect committee that, investigated stuff. It found out that we were right on everything. They burned all the information because we were right on everything. Nancy Pelosi knew. I told her, I said, I'll give you 10,000 troops, January 6th. I'll give you 10,000 troops if you'd like. No, we don't want them. Oh, well, they found out that was true. They found out it was true. They burned everything. And Biden gave them a pardon. He gave these people on the committee, Congress people, he gave them a pardon.
And it's a good thing President Biden did that because it's very obvious that Trump wants to go after the members of the January 6th Select Committee because he doesn't like the conclusions of that investigation. As a consequence, though, there is a new January 6th committee led by Republicans where they're going to relitigate this. I think that's a bad idea because I think no matter how you slice it, like that's picking a scab, right? January 6th did not poll well ever. It never polled well for Republicans. Now, over time, it became less and less of a salient issue, which is why Donald Trump's back in power. But you ask people about January 6th, they'll go, oh, yeah, that was awful. That was really stupid of Republicans to do. It was bad on Trump. But it's like fading into the memory. And now they're like, because of Trump's ego, his vanity, they're blowing the dust off it. And I think it's a real opportunity for Democrats to basically hit the Republicans politically on this issue. It's like it's a colossal political mistake. Just a couple things I want to note, though. They did not burn all the evidence. The evidence is still in federal government possession, still in the possession of Congress, number one. Number two, Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. She has absolutely no authority, none. She literally does not exist in the chain of command for the D.C. National Guard, which means if any sitting president of the United States wants to deploy the District of Columbia, the D.C. National Guard, they never, ever, ever need to go to the Speaker of the House of Representatives for permission. President Biden didn't. For example, Mike Johnson was Speaker of the House for the final 2 years, or for the final year, I guess, of Biden's presidency. If President Biden wanted to deploy the National Guard in Washington, D.C., he wouldn't have had to go, hey, Mike, you cool with this? Mike Johnson could have been like, no, Mr. President, I don't think you should do this. And President Biden could have given him the finger and done it anyway. So this idea that Nancy Pelosi could have stopped the deployment of the National Guard is bullshit. If Trump wanted to deploy the Guard, he could have. And the bigger objection is the fact that as the insurrection was unfolding, he sat on his orange ass and watched it unfold for 3 hours and did not deploy the National Guard. That's on him. That's his fault. That is not Nancy Pelosi's fault. A couple of other clips I want to play for you here. Oh my gosh. Talking about the economy. We'll talk about that in a separate video because there's some economic news. I guess we'll close with this kind of roundabout going all the way back to Charlie Kirk. Trump was asked about how he learned about what happened to Charlie Kirk. This is what he said.
He was very hurt when he saw this, but I mean, everybody was. Oh, when I heard it, I was in the midst of, building for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom at the White House, right? They don't have a ballroom. They have to use tents on the lawn for President Xi when he comes over. If it rains, it's a wipeout. And so I was with the architects and with design. It's going to be incredible. And they came in, they said, Charlie Kirk is dead. I didn't know what they meant. I said, what do you mean dead? Charlie Kirk was shot. And they thought he was dead because it was so horrific, And I said, dead? You got.
Yeah, so that's how he found out, apparently, that that Kirk had been shot. I guess it was before the explicit confirmation, and Trump was the one who announced it later. But, folks, regarding that first clip in particular, of all the crazy things that he says during this Fox News interview, that first clip is the thing that needs to be seared into your memory. When Trump is asked about, in the context of political violence, which has been perpetuated and perpetrated on both sides, particularly the right, if we're being honest, Trump says, I don't care. I don't care about right-wing radicalism. It's not a concern of mine. It's actually justified. The real focus, the exclusive focus, is going to be on left-wing radicalism, and that puts everybody in danger. That's incredibly dangerous, incredibly irresponsible, and disqualifying for a sitting president of the United States. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.